Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the fifth presentation of our Defense and Security Conference. We will now be presenting 4C Strategies AB, a Sweden-based company operating in risk management and crisis software. It is listed on the Nasdaq First North Premier Growth Market in Stockholm with a market cap of around 650 million Swedish krona, so about 60 million euros. I'm very excited to have with me Jonas Jonsson, who is the CEO of 4C Strategies. As you might recall from previous meetings, format 30 minutes, 20 minutes presentations, 10 minutes Q&A, and like in previous presentations as well, questions, please enter them into the chat box. With this in mind, I'll hand it over to Jonas. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Holger, and thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for joining. So my name is Jonas Jonsson. I will be presenting today. I'm the CEO of 4C Strategies. We're traded in Stockholm as 4C Group. And I will be taking you through today's presentation. I have been with 4C for about 13 years now. And I've had a number of different positions, most lately as CEO. Before that, I was in the Royal Swedish Navy, and I'm a background as a lawyer as well. So today I'm going to take you through a little bit about what 4C Strategies do, where we come from, where we are today, and most importantly, where we're going in the future. So on a high-level perspective, 4C Strategies, we've been around for about 25 years with the idea of helping organizations and armed forces and corporations to be more resilient and to be more ready and to be able to act in a better way as and when they are required. So we work in three major areas. One, which we call our resilience software, which is focused on government customers, corporate customers, and large-scale corporations, where we work with risk management, crisis management, business continuity management, and basically just helping organizations to be more prepared for the unexpected and the unknown, and to be able to retain business as usual in an area where like we are in today, where the unexpected seems to be happening all the time. We then have, which is going to be our key focus for today, our defense domain, which is where the company was founded and where we started, where we focus on helping defense organizations in NATO and allied countries in terms of how to better structure exercise management, force preparation, and really readiness management in terms of building a stronger defense force quicker, and making sure that you spend your money in the right place when you're going through the process of doing that. With our defense customers, we are working predominantly or almost exclusively within the preparatory space, i.e. we're helping with training and exercise management and in the preparation and in the lead up to operations, not so much inside the actual operations. And then we have a third leg, which is primarily based out of our Nordic operations, which is what we call our advisory services, where we have a management consultancy arm, which is helping organizations in implementing the things that we talked about within our software space. Now I'm going to take you through what this looks like from a numbers perspective to start with, where the company's come from, how we've grown, where we are today, a little bit about who our customers are, and then taking a deep dive into a little bit more of an explanation about what it is that we actually do in the defense space, as that is very much at the top of mind of everybody, not just here today, but really in Europe as we progress today in the world. And then taking you a little bit in terms of what we do in the resilience space, and then ending up with questions and answers in the end. So hopefully that will give you a good view about what 4C Strategies are, where we're going and where we are today. So look forward to this presentation, but I also look forward to taking your questions at the end. So if we just look at the number slide, so we did our first quarterly report for 2025 a few weeks ago. So if we look at Q1, we delivered a net sales of approximately 9.1 million euros. We report in SEK, but we've converted these into euros for today. So we had 9.1 million SEK in sales for Q1, which is a strong uptick if you compare it to Q1 last year. And in general, the first quarter of the year is not the strongest quarter for 4C. takes a little while for our customer organizations to get going in the new year, to let the budget settle and so on and so forth. We had an ARR for the rolling 12 months of about 18.1 million euros and an order book of about 31 million euros. An order book when it comes to 4C is a bit different when you look at other defense organizations and when you look at some of the benchmark companies, because as we are a software company, the order book is future secured revenue when it comes to delivering licenses and when it comes to delivering some software support to those licenses. If we look at the EBIT margin, you can see a significant improvement compared to Q1 last year. And also, if you look at the software revenue percentage, well, we're a little bit lower in Q1 than our expected target, or our target of about 60%. But also, if you look at it from a rolling 12 months perspective, we are tracking according to our plan. And if we take a little bit of a higher perspective on this and look at how it's developed over the last period, you can see, you can see that the different pillars here are based up of our geographical areas. We divide the way we report the company into our geographical areas. So 4C is operating across the world today. So we have our EMEA business, which is the bright orange. We have our Asia Pacific business, which is the clear blue ones. We have our North American business. We have our global expert services, which is our advisory services. And then you can see how much of that is software revenue in euros as well. So if we, for an introductory purpose, if we take a little bit of a step back, and you can see that 4C, we did our IPO in Q1 of, or Q2, I should say, of 2022, early Q2. We had quite a strong growth period during Q1 and during back end of Q4 21 and 2022. This is where it really took off in North America, and we had a number of big contracts, and you can see that growth trajectory there. We then had a little bit of a setback, which if you've done research into 4C historically, you've seen that during 23, we had some challenges in North America. You can see that the EMEA growth is still on a good trajectory, but you can see that the purple pillar, which is our North American defense business, took a bit of a hit as there was uncertainties in the US around defense budgets and defense spending and so on. We've seen during 2024 and going into 25 that this is now coming back again. So obviously happy to report that as of Q1 25, we hit an all-time high in rolling 12-month sales. And also, more importantly, we can see that we are now operating in all our different segments across the world when it comes to primarily our defense business, but also a growing resilience business across the board. So I'm quite happy about that, and we're seeing a good, strong uptick. And I'll come back to a little bit more about the way we look at the way we see the defense space growing as we go forward. And you will then see, if you're focused on details, you'll see that the APAC business looks small during Q4 and Q1. Now that's as expected, so we know we're quite a good predictability on the APAC business, and it is a bit slower this time of the year. We are expecting an uptick during later in the year and predominantly into the second half of the year with a good uptick in APAC. So all in all, a positive trajectory where we are right now, and obviously really happy to see an all-time high when it comes to the net sales per segment on rolling 12 months. 4C strategies with that in mind. So you can see, as you can see, just over 35 million euros right now, with a tracking trajectory upwards. We're still a small company, which gives us the ability to be fast and agile with quite a big global compact. So we're just over 200 employees, but we do have businesses and offices on 3 continents. We have our headquarters in Stockholm. We've got our development office in Malmö, which is just in the south of Sweden. We have 2 offices here in the UK where I'm located today. We've got 2 offices also in North America, in Washington and in Orlando. And we have our most recently opened office in APAC, in Brisbane, servicing quite a quickly growing market in the Asia Pacific. So going after the Pacific really from 2 sides, both from the US, but also from the Australian angle, with a lot of good progress in that area. Everybody has a show-off slide. So in terms of who we're working with, it's quite a wide spread of organizations. I'll come back to the defense side in just a minute. But you can see that the kind of organizations that engage with 4C strategies are the ones who are either highly regulated, the ones who really care about the public perception, and the ones who are, customer facing, and who cannot afford to not be prepared to meet adversary when it arrives. So quite big names on this slide, and we're obviously, this is just an excerpt, and it's growing quite rapidly. But if we take a look at the defense side of the house, so who are we working with today, and who have we been working with for a long time? So the company was founded in Sweden together with the Swedish Armed Forces in the early 2000s. We've been working with them with exercise development and making exercise management more efficient and effective ever since. We've grown together with the British Armed Forces for a really long time, since 2007, also working with the Swiss Armed Forces for a really long time, and more recently been engaging with both directly with NATO, which is a great growth market for us, but also since 2016 breaking into the US with the US Armed Forces and the US DoD. And I'll just take a quick break to clarify, because as a European company and as a Swedish company, to actually break into the US market takes a really long time. But it is a significant opportunity once you get there. And as of back end of 2023, we achieved what's called facility clearance, which basically means that we are cleared as an entity to deal directly with the US DoD companies or customer through our US company. And this is something that's really important if you're a non-US company breaking into the US market, and it takes a really long time to achieve as well. So we're obviously really happy with that, and we're now working hard to make sure that we can make the most out of that market potential, which is rapidly growing still in the US, regardless of everything that's going on at this precise moment. But for us, both the US, but obviously then, as I'll come to in a minute, Europe is a massive growth potential. So this is where we are today. We also have a few new countries, both coming in the very near future, but also signed in Europe, which we are yet to disclose specifically who they are, as it is early stages, but growing quickly, primarily in interest in Europe, but also in terms of who our customers are. So again, taking a little bit of a step back, and you will have heard more about this earlier today, I'm sure, from my colleagues in the different companies who presented previously. But obviously in Europe, there's a rapidly growing defense spending. There's been a significant time of underspend when it comes to the defense forces in Europe, which has been made very clear over the last 6 months. And I think what we're seeing now, and what we've seen as well previously as a reflection or a reaction to the war in Ukraine, is that organizations are sort of scrambling in terms of how they will continue to invest into the European defense and into rebuilding those capabilities that have been lacking. Now, for us, it's important to say that we are not yet seeing the effects of this. So I'll go to the next slide in terms of how I try to explain what it is the 4C strategies deliver within the defense training space. So if you talk to a military trainer, if you talk to someone who's in a training organization, I would use a different nomenclature and a different explanation. But in these contexts, I tend to try and explain it a little bit like an ERP system for training and exercising within the Allied Armed Forces. It's not an ERP system for armed forces. It's not an SAP or an Oracle system, but it is an ERP system that ties together all the components when it comes to the modern training area and the modern training space, to make sense out of all of that information and that data which is available. Now, with the rapid increase in defense spending that has happened over the last couple of years, the first focus is not in training or exercise. The first focus is to replenish what was donated to Ukraine. Second focus is to rebuild your own capability and capacity when it comes to body armor and helmets and ammunition and weapon system. Now, once you're progressing with that, then you start to look into, okay, how are we actually going to build capability out of all of this infrastructure and all this this material that we've now purchased? So for Forces Strategies and our platform, which we call Exonaut, we come in when you're going into the next phase, when you're going into the third or the fourth wave, has been mentioned, I'm sure, as well, previously today, looking at how are we actually going to train with all of this. So Exonaut as a system is a platform that pulls together the information from what is it that you're supposed to achieve, how are we going to do it, how do you break that down into the details to make sure that all the money that we invest in training, how do you get the capability out on the other side, and how do you get that capability in a measurable way so that you can show to the Defense Administration, to the government, and to the people that the money that's being invested to build capability is actually generating that force readiness and that capability. So we are taking information from everything from databases around who is available, what are they doing, what are they supposed to train, what's the available tactical engagement simulation systems, i.e. Quantitative systems that are available in the training area today, in terms of how we're performing, and tying all of that together to give you that picture of what is actually the outcome from this training. What is the force readiness that is being produced? And we've been doing this, as I mentioned, with both the Swedish, the Swiss, and the British Armed Forces for a really long time in terms of that certification. And we're now seeing a rapidly increased interest from the other European nations as well when it comes to actually, we need to put all of these soldiers, sailors, and seamen at a heightened state of readiness. How do we do that, and how do we do that quickly? And that's where a system like Exonaut comes in. Now, we have the accreditation to do this within NATO at both secret and unclassified levels. We have the accreditation to do that in a number of different areas as well. Quickly touching on the topic of the hour, which is AI, and how are we progressing with AI. Now, we are implementing AI into multiple steps of our workflows, but the point that I will make here is that our most important differentiator when it comes to AI is our accreditation, which I just mentioned. So we are accredited for use within the Defense Forces as a platform, and we are able to take, and we've already built air-gapped AI capability that can operate without connectivity to the internet, which means that we can take the data which is available within the training area and within the systems at the customer sites and build out that, or add on that AI capability in terms of how can you automate workflows, how can you do better prediction and forecasting, and how can you simplify your readiness assessments to make it quicker, because the amount of training data which is available in training areas today is rapidly growing. So all in all, on the defense space, where we are today is we've got some of the key customers around the world. We are in conversations with the other European nations right now, and we're seeing a rapidly growing market. I think we'll see this for another couple of years, regardless of what happens and how the current situations progress. I think we're going to see a continued uptake in this area, and we're really looking forward to be able to help those organizations. And just really briefly, at the back end of this, I mentioned initially that we're working in two legs when it comes to our software, and this is almost as sort of important at the moment and top of mind is what we're doing in the non-defense space. So we've launched our resilience platform. We are working within incident management, within continuity management, risk, but also predominantly and more importantly within exercise management within the civilian organizations as well. And this is also a software platform. This is delivered as a SaaS tool across Europe and the world, where we are seeing a rapidly growing number of customers at the moment. Quite a different market, obviously, to the defense space, but very high interest as well. Not in the least with the sort of all of the ongoing situations. You saw Heathrow Airport shut down a few weeks ago or a month ago. You saw the big power outage in Spain, and we could see that some organizations were better prepared to be able to manage these situations than others. And that is those that were prepared. They have a good continuity plan. They have scenarios which they have prepared for, and they've tested, and they run the exercises, and they know how to act when something like this happens. So for 4C Strategies, all in all, we work on both sides of the house, both within the defense space, but also within our resilience platform. And we're working together with our experts to tie all of this together in terms of providing that service to the end customers. So still a small Swedish customer, just over 200 people, but with a global reach and quite an exciting offering throughout the world. So with that, we'll jump on to the questions and answers. That's a whistle-stop tour of 4C in 20 minutes. So thank you, Holger.
Thanks, Jonas. Let me just dive right in. The first question was, and you might have mentioned that, and I didn't get it, but how much of your revenue is actually in defense?
So it's about 70 to 75%. And the percentage-wise is growing at the moment as well, because we're seeing that the defense part of the business is growing quicker and the contracts are bigger. Long term, we're tracking on a trajectory to have about 50-50, but that's going to take a couple of years to achieve now. But we are working towards that long term.
And if you look at your customer base, is there a cluster risk, i.e., can you give us a feel how much of your revenues are done with the top 3 or top 10 customers?
Yeah, so it's quite a significant, it depends a little bit on how you classify a customer. So for us, for example, the British MOD stands for quite a significant part of our revenue. But on the other hand, within the British MOD, we are working with probably between 10 and 15 different customers, if you will. Yes, there is there's a high dependency on a number of markets when it comes to the defense side. So the British, the American, the NATO customers, but they're quite differentiated within themselves, and there's quite a lot more to do as well within each of these markets.
You talked about the US in the beginning of your presentation and the squeeze that you've seen and the growth that you've seen after that. One question pertains to the US sales activity. Can you give us a little bit more color inside the defense sector and the private companies in the US, and what the deal pipeline looks like in 2025 and 2026? And basically adding on to that in more general terms, do you have a pipeline across your whole business, and could you give us some color on that as well?
Yeah, so we don't publicly disclose full details on our pipeline, but in general, you can say that currently, historically, when we broke into the US, we tried to go after as a sub to quite a number of big programs. We signed one of them, which was the training management tool component of the synthetic training environment, which was a really big opportunity for us, to the tune of sort of $25 million in one contract. And we tried to go mainly after those. And when the market then slowed down and the defense budget got squeezed, that created a problem for us. So what we've done in the last 12 months is to focus a lot more on what we call COTS, so off-the-shelf deals into the US market as well. So smaller deals, but with a higher number available. And we're seeing quite a big interest. We've signed a couple of those during back end of last year and also Q1, which presents us with a bigger spread and also with an annual recurring revenue. So smaller but larger in numbers. And we can see that's a growing market for us. I was in America last week and I talked to a number of customers who have an interest, and those programs are not being affected by the current DoD adjustments, which are being done, who are primarily targeting, the large defense programs, which you can read about in the news and so on. So from our perspective, we're not seeing a major effect based on the Trump administration's changes in policies. We are seeing quite a significant uptick in pipeline building on the resilience side as well in the US, but it's a bit of a break into the market from us. So currently we've got 3 people on the ground working that market, and it's quite a big market. But more to follow on that as we progress as well. But in general, I would say that we've got a good pipeline at the moment with really strong opportunities. The challenge sometimes for a company like us is to forecast the exact conversion and sort of how that hits in the different quarters. As you will have seen, there's some volatility in our quarters, and with the revenue recognition principles for license sales, etc., that also can sometimes give you a little bit of a bump up and down.
Do you have targets communicated or implied when it comes to revenue levels for the next, let's say, 1, 3, 5 years, or respectively growth rates that you target?
So we are targeting our financial targets is a growth rate of 20% with a profitability of 20%. So that's what we're tracking. That's what we're targeting against. I think in some areas we will see a quicker growth rate than that. In some areas it will be a little bit slower. And also in terms of our profitability, as you will have seen from, if you look back at our numbers and from those pillars there earlier in the presentation, when you take a hit like that in the middle of a growth trajectory, then obviously it takes a little while to get back on the levels of profitability. So I think it's a bit optimistic for this year, but in terms of the future, that is still our aim, to be able to achieve 20 plus 20 in terms of growth and profitability.
All right. Very specific question on the new NATO client, and it reads why you're not disclosing the name of the new NATO client, or if you could give us a time frame when you will be ready, or we will be ready to know the details of the new contract.
Yeah, it's an early stage, and in the early stages of a contract like that, it sometimes takes time to get all the approvals in place to be able to say exactly who it is. We will be disclosing that later in the year, hopefully along with another number of new customers as well in the space. So we are working on opportunities as we speak, but we're also that contract is just getting started. So we're obviously really happy to see we got Norway earlier this year to change their focus into a much wider approach. We're continuing to see growth in the UK and in the US, and with more NATO countries in mainland Europe now also getting on board with using the same software platform as NATO as an organization, and the other countries as well. I think we're going to see some very positive synergies from that.
Okay, last question is regarding the actual users of your defense software. Is it more the admin staff that's using it? Is it the actual soldier? Is it the lead soldier? Who's using it?
It's quite a big spread. So in general, I would say it's not the actual soldier. So we're not deploying it into the individual soldier in the field. It's more of the lead, the exercise leads, the people who are running the exercises and then observing and assessing and evaluating what's happening. But then it goes all the way up to the highest levels of the generals, looking at the data that comes out of it. So every week our software is used to brief the highest levels of NATO command in terms of how the NATO force structure is progressing. And then on that data is collected from all the way down in terms of the individual body-worn sensors, in terms of how they are contributing to collective training. So it's a very big spread depending on which use case you use. And for more information, those are available on our website as well, in terms of breaking it down on different use cases at different levels within the armed forces.
All right. We're exactly at half an hour, Jonas. I appreciate your time and the insights. Thanks, everybody, for listening and the clever questions that you posted. We will continue with the next presentation. That will be Seconet Security Networks. I just posted the link for that next presentation into the chat, so I guess we'll see you there. And Jonas, if you have 1 second for me, we'll just go offline. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.